Today, let's sew a sequin top for my mom to wear to the Eras tour. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today I'm using pattern New Look 6708 to make a shirt for the Eras tour. So my mom decided she wanted to go with the Fearless era, which is kind of known for its gold, sparkly, over-the-top looks. So I found this gold sequin fabric from Mood Fabrics, and we're just going to be cutting it out using this pattern. So I've actually made quite a few shirts from this already. The only difference with this one is that I opted for the long sleeve version, and my mom wanted a long sleeve shirt. The sequins were so messy though, especially after cutting them out. I'm still finding them in places, but I did go ahead and cut out the gold sequin top as well as I using a white lining. The fabric wasn't too bad to work with, but I did make a mistake as I was like, I'm going to go through and serge all this. Really, you shouldn't serge sequins as it does really wear down your machine. And I also serged the lining to the sequins, thinking that this was going to make it a lot easier for myself because the pieces were connected when I should have done two separate pieces, like a lining and then the exterior. But it's okay, everything ended up working out in the end. So now that I had the lining and the sequin fabric ready to go, I just started actually working through the pattern. This pattern is a really great beginner friendly pattern as it only has like one button closure up top, and then everything else really comes together easily with it. So I got the back all pinned up, and then for the sleeves it does have this little gather detail, which is how it adds a little bit of something interesting, so it's not just like a plain blouse. And I was a little worried about the gathering on the sequin fabric, but actually came out really nicely. So here's where I started to notice that I ran into my sequins issue, as when you fold the sequins in, that means that the sequins are going to be against your skin, which really isn't ideal. So I did kind of think through, did I want to try to restart this whole project? What did I want to do with this? And so when I talked to my mom about it, she's going to wear a shirt underneath. That way the sequins aren't rubbing against her, but if I remade this in the future, I definitely wouldn't have those sequins against your skin. I would have done the lining. Once I got that piece done though, at the top I was able to add the little elastic closure, and then I just continued on exactly how the pattern talks about with making the shirt. So you're going to be sewing up the side seams, which is really easy to do, and then for the sleeves you're going to start pairing the sleeves together. So there's a back sleeve and a front sleeve, and then you match those together to create the entire sleeve. So I just went through the process of doing that so that I could really start to have this blouse coming together. It was so fun every time I looked at it just because of how shiny it was. Working with these sequins was a little harder though than expected, just because these are larger sequins, so definitely be sure to use a thicker needle if you are going to be working with material like this. So once I had the sleeves together and the actual shirt front and back together, it was then time to add the sleeves into the shirt. So this is where the gathering portion came into play. I didn't really have too many issues gathering the sequin fabric. I was a little concerned that it was going to be really difficult, but it ended up laying really nicely, and because it did have that shiny sequin effect on the front, it looks really nice too. So once I had both sleeves into their place, it was then just time to start sewing them up. And once that was done, the shirt was really coming together. So this is what it currently looks like. Now all that's left is to do a little bit of finishing on the collar, the cuffs, and then the hem. So I also have a really fun button that I will be adding to the back, and the shirt was coming along so much easier than I expected it to be. Now for the sleeves, what I noticed was there was actually a pattern difference in the sequins. So at this point I brought it over to my mom for her to try on to see what did she think of the shirt so far, and everything was pretty good with it. So I went ahead and did the bias binding for the collar, as this is how the pattern actually talks about doing it. I definitely think if I had made the lining a separate piece, that also could have worked really well for this, and then I wouldn't have had to worry about the bias binding. But overall, we have the completed collar. It looks nice and neat. So now for the rest of finishing off, so the sleeves as well as the hem. The sleeves are way too long as is, and the idea would be that you would actually add like a cuff, and then there'd be an elastic portion so that it kind of fits a little tighter against your wrist. My mom didn't want that though. She would rather them be more flared, so I just cut off about 4.5 inches from each sleeve so that it fits her better. It was not too long of sleeves, and then also it got rid of that weird pattern where the sequins didn't look the same as the rest of the fabric. And then I'm going to be going through, and I had this ribbon that I had gotten from a Mood Fabrics mystery box, and because it's a very similar gold color, it actually is really soft to the touch too. So I'm going to be using this almost as kind of a binding, and then on the inside she won't have to feel like any scratchy sequins, but instead she'll just feel this nice soft ribbon. So once I figured out how big of a length to make that, I just went through and sewed both of these up so that I would have a continuous loop, and then I will be able to attach that loop to the sleeve itself, and then we'll go through the process of the binding very similar to how I did for the collar. So I'm just going through now, matching with right sides together, that ribbon with the sleeve cuff, and then I'm just going to be sewing all of this into place, and I repeated this then for the second side of the sleeve cuff too. So here's what it will look like. It'll just kind of fold in on itself, and then you won't be able to see the lining raw edges, you won't be able to see the sequin raw edges. It will work really nicely. So last but not least, it was really just all about the bottom portion, how I wanted to do the hem. So I went ahead and I did use my serger one more time with the sequin fabric and just serged all the way around the bottom, and then I started hand stitching everything else in place. So those cuffs that we had talked about, I went through and just hand stitched that ribbon to the lining so that it was staying in place. And then for the hem, where I had taken the serger, I just went through and hand stitched that hem in place so that it almost had like a blind hem look. And then I added the star button, and here is the finalized shirt. This was so fun to make. It is so sparkly and so golden. Now I definitely think, looking back on it, I would have done the separate lining and then the separate sequin fabric, but everything came together really well, and this fits my mom perfectly. She's really happy with it, and it's something that she's comfortable in too. I'm also happy with the way that I did the ribbon for the sleeve cuffs, as it's not going to be itchy or scratchy for her, and then because she will be wearing the shirt underneath, the rest of the sequins that could potentially be touching her skin, it shouldn't bother too much since she'll have that extra layer. So now it was just time to pack up the shirt and take it to the Eras tour. We had so much fun seeing everything that was around the stadium, getting to listen to the music, and I'll include a couple clips here just in case you want to see some of the items that were going on. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you want to see next. Thanks for watching.